You brought up the local ecosystem in Boulder being so important to, I think, the growth of Skratch. But you're not a local business from that standpoint, where you do get out and you do want it to be purchased by other people. I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this. I think a lot of companies that are local, that have a huge local feel, have this problem where it's hard to then take that local brand, that narrative, and then get it out, because they're two different things. If I'm in Boulder, okay, Skratch is easy to do, right? If I'm in St. Louis, I can drink Bud Lights all day because it's local, right? But if I'm in Virginia Beach, Virginia, I'm looking for the Skratch of Virginia Beach, right? So how do you then take that narrative that's done so well in Boulder and push it out to a different location that's not in your kind of local ecosystem?
Yeah. I think that first and foremost, there's an acknowledgement that, at least in business today, you can't always be all things to all people. And I think we got really lucky in that the people who were interested in us initially were very, very affluent, right? And the Boulder community itself is very, very affluent. And so we kind of had this initial goal, which is very small. And it was, let's succeed locally. Let's succeed in this town called Boulder, Colorado, which has a very, very, affluent demographic. And then it was this idea that if we could succeed in Boulder, let's succeed in other places that look like Boulder, right? So we weren't trying to go to places where a $20 bag of sports drink compared to, say, the commodity would be like almost 2 or 3 times the cost. So you start talking about what are all the other target cities. And this is where the food truck came into play. By bringing the food truck, we brought a part of our own selves to these local communities and could create that same vibe. Then there were rep organizations that we started working with that, really understood the local dynamic. And this is where field marketing, one city at a time, really, really matters. Initially, that field marketer was myself, right? And we focus primarily in these very affluent cities in California. I'm from California, and so I know the landscape, and I was able to just kind of, spend weeks at a time out there and, work events from, one city to another city, right? And that was very, very labor intensive for me initially in terms of time. And then the rest of my team could stay in Boulder and focus on kind of the operations and, getting things actually done. And I could be the kind of face person. Today, now what we focus on is our own field marketing teams, and we have field marketing teams that are building out in different regions. We by no means have, total coverage across the United States, but we have enough in certain pockets where our national business is strong, but very much there are certain regions that play better for us than others. Colorado is our number one player, followed by, say, parts of California, parts of the Northeast, Northwest, parts of, say, Texas. But, I don't know if our business is, very meaningful in, say, parts of the South or Midwest, right? Where we don't have the same demographic. And that's okay for us right now, because, again, we had to focus on profit. We had to focus on, success where we could. And we didn't have this aim or intention to grow as fast as possible.
So as you have that organic growth and you spread throughout the United States, what do you do from a differentiation standpoint as people just do some research and they see Skratch? What would you say the biggest differentiator is for you or for Skratch?
It's a hard question for me to know, because I know the product so well that I will say the major differentiator is the simplicity of the product compared to other products in the same set. That we use the bare minimum products. We try to, for example, flavor only with fruit instead of, natural or artificial flavoring agents. We don't use food colorings or dyes. And so I would say that it's the simplicity. It's the kind of bare boneness of what you need and not what you don't need. That being said, I think that I don't know if that always comes across in our packaging. if our, we always talk about, does the packaging connote that sense of simplicity, right? Is it, the story? Is it
Well, that's
that
what RX Bar
word of
did
mouth?
really well, right?
Yeah.
They were like, oh, it's this, it's 3 dates, it's this, it's that. I think the challenge with you is it's not, the products in there aren't normal things that people understand, right? I mean, if you say, what is it, maltodextrin or something like that? Like there's, I'm trying to think of sciencey words that I've heard in the internet in the last 10 years. Like there are words that are in there that people don't understand. So you put that on the packaging and people look at that like, what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah. It is hard to understand. For example, people don't understand. They understand that when you sweat, you lose electrolytes, right? But nobody really even knows what an electrolyte is. And they don't know that there are different types of electrolytes, and that primarily in the human body, the two most important might be, say, sodium and potassium. But then people don't even know that there are these little pumps on every cell in our bodies that pump sodium out of the cell and potassium into the cell. And so the sweat that is generated from our blood is almost entirely sodium with very little potassium in it. So you get companies that try to sell sports drinks with a high amount of potassium, say, which might be similar to a profile like coconut water. And that's exactly the opposite of what you need when you actually sweat, right? And so having to educate people and having to kind of justify your ingredient label based upon real physiology is for sure a challenge. And so you hope that, at least by reputation, word of mouth, etc., that you gain that trust. And I think by and large, we have succeeded because we are a word of mouth company, and that most people's initial access point to our company is through a friend, through someone they trust, through a coach, or at a field event.
I generally don't. I was telling you this earlier. About 2 years ago, I learned about Skratch after bonking enough off of standard Gatorade. I was doing these 3-hour rides over and over and over again. I'm like, what the hell? Like, this should be getting easier. It's getting harder. Yeah. And I'd gotten sick of it. And then somehow I found Skratch. I bought it and it fixed everything. And I've been using it since. I remember this one time Tim and I went on this run like a year ago. I brought him like a little, like a Ziploc bag of like a sandwich bag. And I put in like a scoop of Skratch. I don't know if you ever took it.
Yeah.
But I was like,
my wife questioned me.
Yeah, like this stuff is amazing. Like, you got to try this. And then I've told many people about it since. And so, like, it fixed me. I was like, yo, like, everyone needs to learn about this. Like, Gatorade's garbage. Like, it's not going to fix a damn thing. Like, it's to me, it's like Gatorade is like this thing that people just drink as a drink, and you taste the drink, but it doesn't really do the thing that it needs to.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the exact opposite of what you do. It's like, hey, like, this is complex, this drink isn't, basically, right? And it's like, you don't. I remember the first time I gave my wife something like a Skratch from like a hangover or something, and she was like, I can't taste it, but it makes me feel better. And it's just like, like, it's complex, where you're used to this drink where you're tasting the thing that isn't actually going to help you, and it actually, it's not that my wife gets a lot of hangovers. That was a bad example, but it's like, it's interesting how this thing we need, like, I learned this when I was in Japan. Like, the Japanese love to hear their phones click because they know that it's there. When you close the door, there's a thing that's put in so that you can actually hear that thing done. When you're eating something or drinking something, it's almost like, hey, I want to taste this thing.
Yeah.
And that's more important than the effect of that thing. Where with Skratch, it's like, hey, we don't care about that aspect. We want to make sure that what it's supposed to do, it does. And I know that was like a long run-on sentence of how it works, but it's,
well, I think that
true.
The human body is extraordinarily complex,
sure,
and physiology is complex, and we're trying to solve these complex problems, but we're trying to do so with very, very simple solutions. It begs to this principle in science called Occam's razor, which is this idea that all things being equal, the simplest solution is always the right one. And it also bears to the idea that while we might be very complicated people, our needs are extremely simple. And talking about hydration, for example, during exercise, in principle, all you need is a little bit of energy, and you need simple sugars at that point, because you need to be able to absorb that as quickly as possible to keep your blood sugar up. But you also need to replace the water that you're losing in sweat, as well as the sodium that you lose in your sweat. And when you do so, your body knows how to take care of itself. And so it's very interesting, because when you think about something even like thirst, right? Being thirsty, thirst is an extraordinarily complex physiological mechanism that has, perhaps potentially hundreds of different inputs. That being said, there are two principal things that dictate our thirst. One is our blood volume. So if you get stabbed or if you get shot, and there are a lot of Hollywood tropes that get this right, where someone gets shot and they're just like, Joey, I'm so thirsty, because they're bleeding out, right? Water, they start asking for water. The other side of it is that if you lose water and your blood gets more salty, you also get thirsty. And during exercise, this volume component doesn't come into play because your heart's beating so fast and you got this big blood pressure. So now your body is relying on this salt concentration, and your body would rather keep the salt concentration correct over the volume. And so if you're just drinking plain water, but you're losing all this sweat that has salt in it, your thirst mechanism is going to keep you from drinking all the water that you lost, because it doesn't want you in an environment where there's not as much salt to be diluting the pool with an excess amount of water, right? And so by adding the salt that you lose and being more accurate about those measures, you effectively tune your thirst mechanism so that now you're naturally drinking what you need to drink. And that's the basis of a sports drink. It's really, in some ways, that simple and yet that complex, is that we're simply trying to tune your own intuition, your thirst mechanism, to match what you're actually losing without hurting your body. And maybe the adage is simply, if you replace what you lose, you're fine. And so like when you talk about energy bars and other nutrition products, if you're burning a certain amount of calories and the composition is X amount of carb and X amount of fat, maybe a tiny bit of protein, well, then let's just give you what you're losing in real time. And hopefully your body will know what to do with the rest of it.
I've been directly involved within our entrepreneurial community for years. And the most common question I get is, Tim, I want to get involved, but I don't know what events I should attend. Well, StartWheel eliminates that pain point, because we consolidate all the events you should attend into a single calendar. Now you'll be in the know and see where to spend your time. Gone is the need to search multiple websites and calendars. Just head to startwheel.org and see for yourself. That's startwheel.org.